I want you to meet Scott Towns. He's from Ware, New Hampshire. He works in customer service. He's a Republican who voted for Joe Biden in 2020, but he says he's currently supporting you. Scott?
Scott, good to see you.
Good to see you too, Governor Haley. How would you address the Houthi rebels in the Red Sea and their provocations without expanding the war in the Middle East?
So, again, the frustration that I have with why we're in this situation is all of this could have been prevented. And what we saw is after the debacle in Afghanistan, all of our enemies felt empowered. And keep in mind, there would be no Houthis without Iran. There wouldn't be Hamas without Iran. There wouldn't be Hezbollah without Iran. And what truly fueled Iran was when Biden fell all over himself to get back into the Iran deal. When he lifted the sanctions on Iran, it was the most dangerous thing he could have done. When he lifted the terrorist label off the Houthis, again, that was another thing he never should have done. What we know about Iran and all of their proxies is when they get cash, it doesn't go to take care of the Iranian people. It goes to fuel terrorism. And that's what's happened. And now we have that area of the Red Sea. That's a dramatic part of our global supply chain. And so now that they have started causing trouble there, you know, what we're seeing Biden do is now he's like, we're going to go put the terrorist designation back on them. And now, even if he put the sanctions back on Iran, it's going to take a while to do that. And so our goal should always be, how do you prevent war? That's the number one thing. How do you prevent war? And the best way you prevent war is to deter it in the first place. That doesn't mean putting your head in the sand. It actually means showing strength. So when Iran started shooting at our men and women in Iraq and Syria, why did it take 130 times for Biden to do something about it? If he had hit hard one time where all of the supplies were of the missiles that were going to shoot at them, if he had done that once, they would have backed off. We've seen this with Iran over and over again. Reagan did this. Trump did this. When you go and you punch them hard, whether it's where those depots are that it's happening or whether you go after the Iranian regime's military commanders, that is what they respond to. And so now we've got to go back and find our strength again. And that's the one thing I'll tell you is when I was at the United Nations, I told countries what America was for and what America was against. I didn't care if they didn't like me, but I wanted them to respect America. We've lost that respect. We've got to get it back again.
So I want to ask you, you mentioned the tragic withdrawal of U.S. forces from Afghanistan. And I wanted to ask you a follow on that because I've seen criticism of that withdrawal that faulted both the Biden administration for how it was done and also the Trump administration for negotiating the agreement to leave to begin with. And we all remember President Trump wanting to bring the Taliban to Camp David. I think it was near the anniversary of 9/11 and the rest. You worked for Donald Trump at the time or around that time, so I'm sure your criticisms were internal, not external.
I wasn't there at the time that happened.
But tell me what you thought of the deal that he ultimately negotiated with the Taliban that then the Biden administration inherited. And again, I'm not trying to exempt them from the withdrawal, but Trump played a role here, too. What did you think of that?
So I think that there's a little bit of fault to go around to all sides. The first thing is I think that, this pressure by the American public to get out of wars was important. We had been in Afghanistan way too long. I mean, as my husband served in Afghanistan, I mean, they will tell you, you can't go and recreate a culture. You can't go and build a new country. You should never try and turn a country into something it's not. And I think that was a terrible mistake. What we should be doing is always just making sure we're protecting Americans. So Afghanistan went too far. But when you know you want to pull back, you do it in a way that's smart and sensible. And I think, what Trump did, we never want to see Taliban on U.S. soil, ever. No agreement, no anything. I don't want them at Camp David, anywhere. I think it was a mistake to even try and negotiate with the Taliban because this is a group that you can't negotiate with. Biden wanted to play politics and hit it by a certain date. He wanted to do it by September 11th. And so he rushed. And I know what happened then because I was in the same room when Trump wanted to do that. And we were sitting in the National Security Council. And when that happened, his general said to him, if you want to get out of Afghanistan, you can do it, but you got to send 5,000 more troops over there to do it the right way. And what happened is Biden didn't want to do it the right way. And look at what happened. I mean, if you look at the cash that they left, the equipment that they left, what was heartbreaking for me is I watched my husband watch the news that day, and he saw them driving in the Jeeps, and he goes, those are our vehicles. And then he saw them, and they were waving like flags and all of those things, so you're already feeling demoralized. But then he saw them wearing the American uniforms and making fun of our American soldiers. Like, I mean, think about from everyone over 20 years that served in Afghanistan to see the image of that. And for me, who I went to Afghanistan while I was at the United Nations, the level of improvement of the quality of life for the women there was, you had women working for the first time. You had them where they didn't have to be draped. You had them to where they could actually go to school. All of that's gone. For what? To hit a political deadline? That's what we have to stop. It's not about theatrics at Camp David. It's not about a political deadline with Trump or Biden. What's about doing it is, are you keeping Americans safe? And are you looking at the best interests of our national security? And that didn't happen from either side.
I want you